welcome back to Storytime with YDRC. Today, we're going to be continuing to read Warriors into the Wild. Last time, we left off on chapter 6, so that's where we're going to start for today. All right, so let's get started. Chapter 6. Early morning sunlight streamed down onto the forest floor as Firepaw roamed in search of prey. 2 moons had passed since he had begun his training. He felt at ease in this environment now. His senses had been awoken and educated in the ways of the woods. Firepaw paused to sniff the earth and the cold, blind things that moved within it. He caught the scent of a two-leg that had wandered the forest recently. Now that Greenleaf was fully here, leaves were thick on the branches and tiny creatures were busy beneath the carpet of leaf mold. Firepaw made a lean, strong shape as he moved silently through the trees, all his senses alert for the scent trail that would end in a swift kill. Today, he had been sent his first solo task. He was determined to do well, even if his task was only to bring back fresh kill for the clan. He headed for the stream that he had crossed on that first trek through the ThunderClan hunting grounds. It gurgled and spattered as it ran downhill over the smooth, round pebbles. Firepaw paused briefly to lap at the cold, clear water, then lifted his head and tested the air again for any scent of prey. The stench of a fox lay heavy in the air here. The smell was stale, so the fox must have drunk here earlier in the day. Firepaw recognized the odor. He had smelled it on his first visit to the forest. Since then, Lionheart had taught him it was fox scent. But apart from the glimpse of Fox's brush he had caught on that first outing, Firepaw had still never seen one properly. He struggled to screen out the fox stench and concentrate on the prey scent. Suddenly, his whiskers prickled as he homed in on the warm blood beat of prey. A water vole busy about its nest. A moment later, he saw the vole. The fat brown body was darting back and forth along the bank as it gathered grass stalks. Firepaw's mouth watered in anticipation. His last meal had been many hours ago, but he dared not hunt for himself until the clan had been fed. He remembered the words repeated by Lionheart and Tigerclaw time and time again. The clan must be fed first. Dropping into a crouch, Firepaw began to stalk the little creature. His orange belly fur brushed against the damp grass. He crept closer, his eyes never leaving his prey. Almost there. Another moment, and he would be near enough to spring. Suddenly, there was a loud rustle in the ferns behind him. The water vole's ears twitched, and it disappeared down a hole in the bank. Firepaw felt the hackles rising along his spine. Whatever had ruined his first good chance of catching prey would have to pay. He sniffed the air. He could tell it was a cat, but he realized with a jolt that he couldn't identify which clan it belonged to. The stale stench of fox still confused his smell sense. A growl rose in his throat as he began doubling back in a wide circle. He pricked up his ears and opened his eyes wide, seeking out any movement. He heard the undergrowth rustle again. It was louder now, off to one side. Firepaw edged closer. He could see the ferns moving, but the fronds still hid the enemy from view. A twig snapped with a sharp cracking noise. The noise it's making, it must be big, Firepaw thought, preparing himself for a fierce battle. He leaped for the trunk of an ash and climbed swiftly and silently up to an overhanging branch. Below him, the invisible warrior came closer and closer still. Firepaw held his breath, judging his moment as the ferns were pushed aside and a large grayish shape emerged. Grrr! The battle cry rumbled in Firepaw's throat. Claws unsheathed, he launched himself at the enemy and landed squarely on a set of furry, muscular shoulders. He dug in hard, gripping with thorn-sharp claws, ready to deal out a powerful warning bite. What's that? The body below him shot straight up in the air, carrying him with it. Uh, Grandpa? Firepaw recognized the astonished voice and caught his friend's familiar smell, but he was too fired up to loosen his grip. Ambush! Spat Graypaw, not realizing that the cat gripping onto his back was Firepaw. He rolled over in an attempt to dislodge his attacker. Oof! Oof! Firepaw rolled with him, squashed and flattened beneath the heavy body. It's me, Firepaw! He yowled as he struggled to pull free and sheath his claws. Rolling away, he sprang to his feet and gave himself a shake, which rippled all the way along his body to the end of his tail. Graypaw, it's me, he repeated. I thought you were an enemy warrior. Graypaw rose to his feet. He winced and shook himself. It felt like it, he grumbled, twisting his head around to lick his sore shoulder. You raked me to shreds. Sorry, Firepaw mumbled. But what was I supposed to think with you creeping up on me like that? Creeping up? Graypaw's eyes were round with indignation. That was my best stealth crouch. Stealth? You still stalk like a lopsided badger, Firepaw teased. He flattened his ears playfully. Graypaw gave a hiss of delight. I'll show you, lopsided. The two cats leaped at each other and began rolling over in a play fight. Graypaw swiped at Firepaw with a hefty paw, and the young apprentice's head buzzed with stars. Oof! Oof! Firepaw shook his head to clear it, and then launched a counterattack. He managed to get in a couple of paw strikes before Graypaw overpowered him and held him down. Firepaw let his body go limp. You give up too easily, mewed Graypaw, loosening his grip. And as he did so, Firepaw sprang to his feet, firing Graypaw off his back and into the undergrowth. Firepaw leaped after him and pinned him to the ground. Surprise is the warrior's greatest weapon, he crowed, quoting one of Lionheart's favorite phrases. He jumped nimbly off Graypaw and began to squirm around in the leaf litter, enjoying his easy victory and the warmth of the earth against his back. Graypaw seemed unbothered by his second defeat of the morning. It was too fine a day for bad temper. So how are you getting on with your task? He asked. Firepaw sat up. I was doing just fine until you came along. I was just about to catch a vole when your noisy trampling frightened it off. Oh, sorry, mewed Graypaw. Firepaw looked at his crestfallen friend. That's okay, you didn't know, he purred. Anyway, he continued, shouldn't you be heading to meet the patrol on the Wind Clan border? I thought you had to give them a message from Blue Star. Yeah, but there's plenty of time. I was going to do a little hunting first. I'm starving. Me too, but I've got to hunt for the clan before I can hunt for myself. I bet Dustpaw and Sandpaw used to swallow a shrew or two when they were on hunting duty, snorted Graypaw. I wouldn't be surprised if they did, but this is my first solo assignment. And you want to do it right, I know, Graypaw sighed. What's the message from Blue Star anyway? Firepaw asked, changing the subject. She wants the patrol to wait at the Great Sycamore until she joins them at Sunhigh. Seems that some Shadow Clan cats have been prowling around. Blue Star wants to check things out. You'd best get going then, Firepaw reminded him. The Wind Clan hunting grounds aren't too far from here. There's plenty of time, answered Graypaw confidently. I suppose I should help out after losing you that vole. It doesn't matter, Firepaw mewed. I'll find another. It's such a warm day, there should be quite a few out and about. True, but you still have to catch them. Graypaw nibbled at a front claw, stripping off a piece of the outer sheath thoughtfully. You know, that could take you until way past Sunhigh, maybe even until sunset. Firepaw nodded without enthusiasm as his belly gave a rumble. He would probably have to make 3 or 4 hunting trips before he had caught enough prey. Silverpelt would be in the sky before he got a chance to eat. Graypaw stroked his whiskers. Come on, I'll help you get started. I owe you that, at least. We should be able to catch a couple of voles before I have to get going. Firepaw followed Greypaw upstream, glad of the company and the help. The fox stench was still in the air, but suddenly it smelled stronger. Firepaw paused. Can you smell that? He asked. Greypaw stopped and sniffed the air too. Fox. Yeah, I smelled it earlier. Doesn't it smell fresher to you now, though? Firepaw asked. Greypaw sniffed again, opening his mouth slightly. You're right, he murmured, lowering his voice. He swiveled his head to look across the stream, at the bushes in the woods beyond. Look! Firepaw looked. He saw something red and thick-haired moving among the bushes. It stepped into a clearing in the undergrowth, and Firepaw saw a low body, glinting red in the dappled sunlight. Its tail was heavily furred, and it had a long, narrow snout. So that's a fox? Firepaw whispered. What an ugly muzzle. You could say that again, agreed Greypaw. I was following one of those when we first met, whispered Firepaw. Most likely it was following you, idiot, hissed Greypaw. Never trust a fox. Looks like a dog, behaves like a cat. We must warn the queens that one has strayed into our territory. Foxes are as bad as badgers when it comes to killing young kids. I'm just glad you didn't catch up with the one you saw last time. He'd have made a mouse meat out of a tiny scrap like you. Firepaw looked a little put out, and Greypaw added, You'd stand a better chance these days, though. Anyway, Blue Star would probably send a warrior patrol to scare it off, put the queens' mind at rest. The fox had not noticed them, so the two apprentices continued along the stream. What does a badger look like? Firepaw asked as they prowled along, sniffing to either side. Black and white, short legs. You'll know one when you meet one. They're bad-tempered, lumbering animals. They're less likely to raid the nursery than a fox, but they have a vicious bite. How do you think old Halftail earned his name? He hasn't been able to climb a tree since a badger bit his tail off. Why not? Scared of falling. A cat needs his tail if he wants to land on his feet. It helps him spin in midair. Firepaw nodded in understanding. As Firepaw had predicted, hunting was good that day. Before long, Greypaw had pounced on a small mouse, and Firepaw had caught a thrush. He quickly took its life. No time to practice killing techniques today. There were too many hungry mouths waiting back at camp. Firepaw kicked earth over the prey so that it would be safe from predators until he came back for it. Suddenly, a squirrel broke cover. Firepaw burst into action. After it, he called, pelting at the first full stretch over the springy woodland floor with Greypaw at his heels. They slid to a halt as the squirrel scampered upward into a birch. Lost it, Greypaw growled in disappointment. Panting, the two cats stopped to catch their breath. The acrid stench that hit their mouths and noses surprised them. The thunder path, Firepaw mewed. I didn't realize we'd come so far. The two cats edged forward to peer out of the forest at the great dark path. It was the first time they'd been here alone. A trail of noisy creatures growled along the hard surface, their dead eyes staring straight ahead. Yuck! Greypaw snorted. Those monsters really stink. Firepaw twitched his ears in agreement. The choking smells made his throat sting. Have you ever been across the thunder path? He mewed. Greypaw shook his head. Firepaw took a step out of the cover of the forest. A border of oily grass lay between the trees and the thunder path. He crept slowly out onto it, then shrank back as a stinking monster hurtled past. Hey! Where are you going? Greypaw mewed. Firepaw didn't reply. He waited till there were no monsters in sight. Then he edged forward again, crossed the grass, right to the edge of the path. Cautiously, he reached out a paw to touch it. It felt warm, almost sticky, heated up by the sun. He looked up, staring across the thunder path. Was that a pair of eyes glinting out of the forest from the other side? He sniffed the air, but smelled nothing except the stench of the great gray path. The eyes on the other side were still shining in the shadows. Then they blinked, slowly. Firepaw was sure now. It was a Shadow Clan warrior, and it was staring straight at him. Firepaw! Graypaw's voice made Firepaw jump, just as a huge monster, taller than a tree, roared past his nose. The wind from it almost toppled him over. Firepaw turned and ran as fast as he could, back to the safety of the forest. You mouse-brained fool, spat Graypaw. His whiskers trembled with fear and anger. What are you doing? I just wondered what the thunder path felt like, Firepaw muttered. His whiskers were trembling too. Come on, hissed Graypaw edgily. Let's get out of here. Firepaw followed Graypaw as he leaped away back into the forest. Once they were a safe distance from the thunder path, Graypaw stopped to catch his breath. Firepaw sat down and began to lick his ruffled fur. I think I saw a Shadow Clan warrior, he mewed between licks, in the forest on the other side of the thunder path. A Shadow Clan warrior? Echoed Graypaw, his eyes wide. Really? I'm pretty sure. Well, it's a good thing that monster came past when it did, retorted Graypaw. Where there's one Shadow Clan warrior, there's more, and we're no match for them yet. We'd better get out of here. He looked up at the sun, which was almost directly overhead. I'd better get a move on if I want to meet that patrol time, he mewed. See you later. He sprang away into the undergrowth, calling as he went. You never know. Lionheart might let me come and help you with the hunting once I've delivered this message. Firepaw watched him go. He envied Graypaw, wishing he were off to join a warrior patrol. But at least he'd have something to tell Dustpaw and Sandpaw when he returned to camp. Today, he had seen his first Shadow Clan warrior. Chapter 7. Firepaw retraced his steps and headed back toward the stream. He thought of those eyes burning from the darkness of the Shadow Clan territory. Suddenly, he caught a faint smell on the breeze. A stranger, perhaps that Shadow Clan warrior. Instantly, a growl rumbled in Firepaw's throat. The sent message told him many things. The stranger was a she-cat, not young, and definitely not from Thunder Clan. She carried no distinct scent from any of the clans, but Firepaw could tell she was tired, hungry, and sick, and she was in an ugly mood. Dropping low, Firepaw moved forward, heading toward the scent. Then he paused in puzzlement. The warrior's scent was fainter now. He sniffed again. Suddenly, with a lightning movement, a snarling ball of fur burst from the bushes behind him. Firepaw screeched in shock as the she-cat slammed into him, knocking him sideways. Two heavy paws clamped down onto his shoulders, and iron jaws closed around the back of his neck. He grunted, already thinking fast. If the other cat were to sink its fangs too deep, it would be all over. He forced himself to go limp, relaxing his muscles as if in submission, and let out a pretend howl of alarm. The she-cat opened her mouth to give a triumphant yowl. A puny apprentice. Easy prey for Yellowfang, she hissed. At the insult, Firepaw felt a surge of fury. Just wait. He'd show this coughed-up furball what kind of a warrior he was. But not yet, he told himself. Wait until you feel her teeth again. Yellowfang bit down. Firepaw surged upward with all the strength in his powerful young body. The she-cat gave a snarl of surprise as she was thrown clear. She tumbled backward into a gorse bush. Firepaw shook himself. Not such easy prey, huh? Yellowfang hissed defiance as she tore herself free from the clinging branches. Not bad, young apprentice, he spat back, but you'll need to do a lot better. Firepaw blinked when he saw his opponent clearly for the first time. The she-cat had a broad, almost flat face, and round orange eyes. Her dark gray fur was long and matted into smelly clumps. Her ears were torn and ragged. Her muzzle was traced with the scars of many old battles. Fairpaw stood his ground. He puffed out his chest and glared a challenge into the intruder's face. "You're in ThunderClan's hunting ground. Move on!" "Who's going to make me?" Yellowfang drew back her lip defiantly, exposing stained and broken teeth. "I will hunt. Then I will leave. Or maybe I'll just stay a while." "Enough talk," Fairpaw spat, feeling the stir of the ancient cat spirits deep inside him. There was no trace of the house cat in him now. His warrior blood was up. He was itching to fight, to defend his territory and protect his clan. Yellowfang seemed to sense the change in him. Her fierce orange eyes sparkled with new respect. Dipping her head and breaking eye contact, she started to back off. "No need to be hasty now," she purred in a silky tone. Fairpaw wasn't fooled by her trickery. Claws extended and fur on end, he leaped forward, his war cry ringing out. "Grrr!" With a hiss of rage, the other cat responded, snarling and spitting. Young cat and old locked together. They rolled over and over, teeth and claws flashing, ears pressed flat to his head. Fairpaw caught to get a grip, but the she-cat's clumpy fur snagged in his claws, and he couldn't break through to skin. Then Yellowfang reared up on her back legs. With her filthy tail bristling, she looked even bigger. Fairpaw sensed Yellowfang's huge jaws lunging toward him. He leaned backward, just in time. Snap! Bared teeth closed on the air next to his ear. Instinctively, Fairpaw lashed out with a back swipe. His paw caught the side of the Yellowfang's head. The force of it sent shockwaves up his front leg. Yow! Stunned, Yellowfang dropped onto four paws. She shook her head to clear it. In the single heartbeat before the she-cat recovered, Fairpaw saw his chance. He threw himself forward, crouching low, and clamped his jaws tight on Yellowfang's back leg. The taste of the matted fur was horrible, but he chomped down hard. Yellowfang screamed in agony and whipped around to snap at Fairpaw's tail. Her teeth connected, and the pain lanced up Fairpaw's spine, but it only made him angrier. He ripped his tail from his opponent's grip and lashed it back and forth in rage. Yellowfang crouched, ready for a fresh attack. Her breath seemed to wheeze up from her foul-smelling lungs. The scent blasted Firepaw's nose. Up close, the message of desperation and weakness, and the aching void of the she-cat's hunger, was almost painful. Something stirred inside of him, an unwarrior-like feeling that he didn't want. Pity. He tried not to dwell on this instinct. He knew his loyalty must be to his clan, but he couldn't shake free of it. You speak from your heart, young Firepaw. Lionheart's words echoed in his head once more. This will make you a stronger warrior someday. Then Tigerclaw's warning rang back in his ears. Or it might make him give in to the kitty pet's weakness right at the moment of attack. Yellowfang lunged forward and Firepaw jerked instantly back into aggression. The bigger cat tried to reach up onto his shoulders and get a killing grip, but this time she was hampered by her wounded leg. Firepaw arched his spine, but Yellowfang managed to dig in her claws and hung on tight. The bigger cat's weight forced him to the ground. Firepaw tasted earth on his tongue and spat out a mouthful of grit. Pah! He twisted nimbly to avoid Yellowfang's thrashing back legs and the thorn-sharp claws that were trying to rake at his soft underbelly. Over and over they rolled, biting and snapping. Moments later, they broke apart. Firepaw was gasping for breath now, but he sensed that Yellowfang was weakening. The she-cat was badly wounded, and her back legs could barely support her scrawny body. Had enough yet? Firepaw growled. If the intruder gave way, he'd let her go with just a warning bite to remember him by. Never! Yellowfang hissed back bravely. but her injured leg gave way and she slumped to the ground. She tried to get up and failed. Her eyes were dull as she hissed up at Firepaw. If I weren't so hungry and tired, I'd have shredded you to mouse dust. The she-cat's mouth twisted in pain and defiance. Finish me off. I won't stop you. Firepaw hesitated. He'd never killed another cat before. Perhaps in the heat of battle, he would put a mercy killing in cold blood. This was something very difficult, very different. What are you waiting for? Yellow Fang taunted. You're dithering like a kitty pet. Firepaw smarted at the she-cat's words. Could she smell the scent of the two legs on him? Even now, after all this time? I'm an apprentice warrior of Thunder Clan, he snapped. Yellowfang narrowed her eyes. She'd seen Firepaw flinch at her words, and she knew she'd hit a nerve. Ha! Don't tell me ThunderClan's so desperate they have to recruit kitty pets now. ThunderClan is not desperate, hissed Firepaw. Prove it then. Act like a warrior and finish me off. You'll be doing me a favor. Firepaw stared at her. He would not be goaded into killing this miserable creature. He felt his muscles relax as curiosity pricked him. How had a clan cat gotten in such a state? ThunderClan elders were looked after better than kids. You seem in an awful hurry to die, he meowed. Yeah? Well, that's my business, mouse fodder. Yellowfang snapped. What's your problem, kitty? Are you trying to talk me to death? Her words were brave, but Firepaw could smell the hunger and sickness that were coming off the other cat in waves. She was going to die anyway if she didn't eat soon, and since she could hardly hunt for herself, perhaps he should kill her now. The two cats looked at each other, uncertainty in both their gazes. Wait here, Firepaw ordered at last. Yellowfang seemed to deflate. Her hackles soothed out and her tail lost its gorsebush stiffness. Are you kidding, kitty? I'm going nowhere, she grunted, limping painfully toward a patch of soft heather. She flopped down and began licking her leg wound. Firepaw glanced briefly over his shoulder at her and hissed quietly in exasperation before heading for the trees. As he padded silently through the ferns, sun-warmed odors filled his nose. He caught the sour reek of a long-dead rat. He heard the scratching of insects beneath bark, the rustle of furry things scurrying over leaves. His first thought had been to go up and dig the thrush he had killed earlier, but that would take too long. Maybe he should go and scoop up the rat carcass. Easy meat, but a starving cat needed fresh kill. Only when times were very hard could a warrior eat crow food. Just then he paused, scenting a young rabbit ahead. A few more steps and he saw it. Flattening himself down, he stalked the creature. He was barely a mouse length away before it detected him. By then it was too late. The white bobtail darted away, darting away sent the thrill of the chase surging through Firepaw's veins. A rush of speed, a flash of claws. He had it. He held the wriggling body fast and finished it off quickly. Yellowfang looked up tiredly as Firepaw dropped the rabbit on the ground beside her. Her grizzled jaw dropped. Well, hello again, kitty. I thought you'd gone to fetch your little warrior friends. Yeah, well, I might still do that. And don't call me kitty, Firepaw growled, shoving the rabbit nearer with his nose. He felt embarrassed by his kindness. Look, you don't want this. No, Yellowfang meowed hastily. I do want it. Firepaw watched the she-cat rip open the prey and start to swallow it down. His own hunger rose up and his mouth filled with water. He knew he shouldn't even be thinking about eating. He still had to take back enough prey for the clan, but the fresh kill smelled delicious. A few minutes later, Yellowfang gave a huge sigh and flopped onto her side. First fresh kill I've had for days. She licked her muzzle clean and settled down to give herself a thorough wash. As if one wash is going to make much of a difference, Firepaw thought, his nose twitching. She was the arch cat of stench. He eyed the tattered remains of the prey. There wasn't much left to line a growing cat's belly, but his fight with Yellowfang had sharpened his appetite even more. He gave in to his hunger and gulped down the scraps. It was delicious. He licked his lips, savoring every last taste, tingling from head to paw. Yellowfang watched him closely, showing her stained teeth. Better than the muck 2 legs feed some of our brothers, isn't it? She mewed slightly. Knowing she had found his sore spot, she was trying to antagonize him. Firepaw ignored her and began to wash. It's poison, Yellowfang went on. Rat droppings. Only a spineless bag of fur would accept such disgusting frog spawn. She broke off and tensed. Shh, warrior's coming. Firepaw was also aware of the cats approaching. He could hear their soft paw fall on the leaf litter and the sound of fur swishing through the branches. He smelled the wind brushing against their coats. Familiar smells. These were ThunderClan warriors, confident enough in their own territory not to care about the noise they made. Firepaw licked his lips guiltily, hoping to wash away any traces of the scraps he'd swallowed. Then he looked at Yellowfang and the fresh pile of rabbit bones that lay beside her. The clan must be fed first, Lionheart's voice rang through his head once more. But surely he would understand why Firepaw had fed this wretched creature. His mind reeled, suddenly fearful of what would happen to him. His first apprentice task, and he had ended up breaking the warrior code. Alright guys, so that's where we're going to end it off for today, at the beginning of chapter 8. As always, before we end it off, don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss the next episode, where we're going to be continuing Warriors into the Wild. That's it. Bye!